So you were doing the 6 week class during the day, taking a power nap, and then working at night at the same
Oh yeah,
time.
no power naps.
You're really painting a picture of the struggling artist right now.
The Manhattan Edit Workshop definitely filled in a lot of knowledge gaps for me. It was a great networking opportunity.
As far as like someone sitting with you and giving you the feedback, you're not going to get that kind of stuff by watching a YouTube video.
People are so intimidated by Avid. Everyone who comes over and sees my home setup, they're like, "Are you running like a NASA launch pad here? What's happening?"
Hey everyone, I'm Rafi Salem, back with the Manhattan Edit Workshop talking series. Today, as usual, we have Josh Apter and Jason Banke. Thank you very much. And special guest, Veronica Rutledge. So thank you for joining us. And Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Manhattan Edit Workshop?
All right. Well, this is proof that Manhattan Edit Workshop's been around a while because Veronica is a student from way, way back. Not all the way back. We started in 2002, the idea of teaching the art and technique of editing. So a lot of the why of the process and also, inherently the technical aspects of it too. But when we went from a 4 week editing workshop to our current flagship 6 week workshop, we were able to bring an artist in residence into the class and spend the last 2 weeks screening their work, talking about getting their career started, critiquing the students' cuts of their final pieces for their reels. And it's I don't dislike any classes that we do, obviously, but I really love this one because the groups tend more often than not to, become colleagues right there in the classroom and connections for each other after they leave. And I know tons of students who then not only got work, but then they came into positions where they were looking for people to work, and they would always go back to that pool of former students first because they knew their training, they knew where they came from, even if it wasn't in the same class. So not only do we do a 6 week workshop in Premiere, Avid, and some color correction in DaVinci Resolve, and work with an artist in residence and get your career in shape and going and figure out how to do resumes and a reel and a website. And it's really everything, including the kitchen sink. But we also do classes that are certified classes in Avid and all the Adobe suites for graphic designers and editors and sound design and color correction. You name it, we do it. And now because of the pandemic, we found this, sort of new, it was a forcing mechanism to do remote training. It's not non-concurrent, meaning it's not self-paced training, but we can do, we have a class going on right here with Janet and Avid, and they're in-person and online students at the same time. And, the experience is not diminished in any way. It's actually a really interesting thing to have added to our repertoire in the last couple of years. So, but what I would do is go back to, I guess I'll throw it to Jason because you guys were in the same 6 week class in a weird way. And I'll go back. If you want to date yourselves, you can go back and tell us when that was, Jason. But
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. No.
I won't say a number either, but it was when you were teaching Final Cut and not Premiere.
Yeah, Final Cut 7.
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah, I was a teaching assistant for her. I think that was my second class teaching assistant for, I think, her first. I can't remember exactly, but and I think you had an artist, we were talking before. I think the artist in residence. Did you end up working with his team at some point?
Yeah. Brian Cates and Ali Mooney.
Right,
and
she came in too, right? She came into the class too and spoke.
Yeah, she was his assistant.
What did you end up working with him? What was the?
I did Jack Goes Boating. It was Philip Seymour Hoffman's directorial debut. I think maybe his only director endeavor, but it was such a fun project. I was a post-production assistant.
But you didn't start there though. You started in reality TV, is that right? I can't remember exactly. Was that where you first got?
Yeah. After undergrad, I started transcribing interviews at this company, Left Right, who did a lot of reality and documentary television series, True Life and This American Life for Showtime. And I think I was doing night shift because I was able to also do the 6 week intensive. I was doing that concurrently to kind of get my confidence up and feel really solid with Avid. And then I think after a few months of that, I was bumped up to like the night room, the night machine room assistant, which was a lot of like digitizing mini DVs and beta cam and upresing all, yeah. Fun times. So glad that's not the case anymore.
But you were doing the 6 week class during the day, taking a power nap, and then working at night at the same time.
No power naps. It was just straight. And
You're taking the
it
train
was like
right
a
from
vampire. I would like get home at 4 a.m. in my like little Jersey City Heights apartment, basement apartment. Yeah, but it was worth it. It was like a good foot in the door, and I learned so much during that time.
You're really painting a picture of the struggling artist right now. Jersey City basement apartment.
Yeah, it was a studio, and I think as soon as I like moved out, sorry, my phone's talking to me. Okay. Yeah, that apartment, like a month after I moved out, got broken into. So I think Jersey City Heights is much better these days, but it was like a little rough back then.
So wait, you would take the PATH train in.
I would take the PATH train. Yeah.
And
yeah,
then work. You go to the class, then you'd work in the city and you'd be going back to Jersey City at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And you're here to tell the tale.
Motivation.
Survived.
But then look at you. So you worked. So you got a job working with Brian Cates, and did that really provide you with enough secure footing to make a transition into fiction film?
I think it definitely helped, because I do think a lot of what people are looking for on resumes is name recognition and projects that are familiar with Philip Seymour Hoffman's name attached didn't hurt. I think my path was very circuitous. Like I had still been working in kind of the documentary reality space, and then I at some point got on Are We There Yet, which was a sitcom with Terry Crews that was shooting in Connecticut, and that was also a nighttime position, assistant editor position. And that, I think that sort of was like the thing that like after that project, I was able to more consistently book scripted TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to take a step back and, how did you just randomly hear about the Manhattan Edit Workshop, or so we ask this question all the time, like back then, I'm assuming you did not hear about us from Google. Was it word of mouth? Were you doing print advertising in those days, or?
We were in Movie Maker magazine. Yes, we were. You were joking, but we were paying a lot of money to be in print in magazines and things like that. So, but how did you find us, Veronica?
I want to say it was Google. I want to say it was just like internet research. Like it wasn't that long ago. Like Google was around.
Google's still around, Rafi.
Hey, Google's not that old.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me you were using Excite or Alta Vista. That would be. Those are certain.
Maybe it was Ask Jeeves. No, I think it was Google. Yeah. It was probably, I mean, it could have been like, oh gosh, it could have been like a Movie Maker magazine or something ad, but yeah, I had done an internship my senior year of undergrad where I was learning Avid kind of crash course, but I didn't know like all of the ins and outs and what all of the menus and buttons did. So the Manhattan Edit Workshop definitely like filled in a lot of knowledge gaps for me. And like you were saying, Josh, it was a great networking opportunity. In addition to the Brian Cates gig that I got through networking at MEWShop, I was also on Adventureland, which was the first feature that I got to post assist. And that was through another student who was in my cohort, Claudia. I don't know if you remember her. I think she ended up going in a different life path, but she put me up for the Greg Mottola Adventureland, which is still one of my favorite movies, and was so much fun to work on. And yeah, end of thought. Period.
Put a button on that thought. But
Who was
so
the editor?
you,
I'm sorry, John. Who was the editor on that show?
That was Anne McCabe.
Oh, we know Anne McCabe. Sure.
Yeah. And we crossed paths again years later on Younger,
Okay.
which was a TV Land series with Sutton Foster. She was an editor, and I was like assistant editor and got my first co-editor credit on that show.
so that was your trajectory. I'm not going to say it because everyone we talk to, it's their own. It's like they're all different, and they might be theme and variation, but it seemed like you had a more traditional path that you might find, film editors who are sort of like bouncing around Sound One and would get jobs assisting and then co-editing and then editing. But did you work for the same editor for a long period of time before you found yourself editing, or it's just a number of different jobs at certain levels where you found like you got picked up and lifted up to editor?
Yeah, it was not necessarily the same editor, but the same post producer at Jax Media. I was on for a while. I was on like a kind of permalance situation there and had worked on a few shows, Younger and the Jim Gaffigan show. And I was on the Gaffigan show. They're like so just publicity savvy and were obsessed with making promos. And so they would always throw those my way. And they loved what I did. And then so for season 2, they were putting me up to be an editor. And there was pushback from like the higher ups, but Jeannie Gaffigan really pushed back for me, which I'm always like indebted to her for. And so that was like my first full editing position. And I did 3 episodes. And then I was like, great, I'm just an editor now and everyone's going to hire me. And that didn't exactly happen that way. I was like still taking some assistant jobs. I was also interested in doing hour-long dramas and didn't want to be like pigeonholed in just doing comedy, although I love comedy. And so I was working with an editor called Joe Hobeck on like The Affair, and then we did Happen Leonard together. And he was a great mentor, which is not always the case, but like really took the time to, let me cut scenes and give me really valuable feedback on them. And that I don't think any of those turned into like an official co-edit credit, but I qualified it as co-edit because I did a lot of work on those shows.
As long as it's on IMDb and in your heart, that's
it's in
the
my
most
heart.
important. Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is like, because there have been students who have chosen like different life paths. And, there were a few students just even in the class, it took them 6 weeks to realize that they were not editors. And then there are students who like, they just sort of take off and they keep doing the work and they have careers. And, like Jason, you had mentioned Joe Shuck. I don't know if his class was before or after yours, but he kind of never looked back and he was always grinding, always working. And, he had to relocate to Boston for his current job, but he's there and he's killing it. And, the hard work does pay off. And, making sure you're there for the good luck or the opportunity to present itself, and just having that hustle. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, when I was working with Brian, I would like stay late. Like everyone would leave and I would stay there to do his line string outs. Just like any opportunity to be at the Avid and show them I was like eager and willing to do the work and put in the time. And then he ended up referring me to someone who was looking for an editor for their short film. And so this is like a really weird way in which like sometimes you never know how connections like come together. But I think the DP on that short film that I edited ended up being the DP on Ramy season 1. And I was put up also for Ramy editing season 1. And he like put in a word for me because he knew. So it's like that, him just like vouching for me is maybe that little extra bump, leg up that helped me get the job.
Right. But you can't, so on some level, you can't teach that. Be at the right place at the right time and have someone put in a good word for you. But
yeah,
work ethic and sort of who you are, the giving that extra, staying late, doing the work, getting the referral, that begets referrals. Like, I don't think it's an accident that one thing led to another thing, because someone knew that you were good for it. And then that turned into another opportunity where someone saw the same thing. Like, I think that's the part that's almost intangible. You can tell people like, you have to take every opportunity to give more than you're asked and things will happen. But there are plenty of people who that's not how they're built.
I want to give you some feedback, all three of you, to the one non-professional here. You make it sound, and maybe I'm wrong, but you make it sound like you work your ass off and you work so many hours to get to the next level where you have to work your ass off and work more hours. Like that, that's what it's sounding to me. Like, is this the glory days of video editing, of film editing, that you just work your ass off all the time?
I don't know. On Emily in Paris, I mean, I would say there were definitely weeks where I worked my ass off, but the schedule was also like pretty cushy. So it was like I don't know. I'm trying to like just in my life in general, instead of always worrying about I mean, it's always good to be like planting seeds and networking. Not talking about that, but like being able to just be very present and engaged with what you're currently doing and not thinking about like the future. Or this is also something I've struggled with in my path, is like comparing yourself and like getting career envy. I think if you are able to just put everything and enjoy the process of whatever it is you're currently working on, that can only help you get to the next level without having to like worry or be concerned about it too much.
Okay, being in the moment.
I
But
was
that's
going
a
to
leap
ask
of faith too, by the way. That's like, you can say, I'm going to focus where I'm going to do what I'm going to be in this moment. I'm going to do what I'm doing to the degree, like and do it as deeply and meaningfully as possible without being distracted by where's my next job coming from.
Yeah, which is hard to do as a freelancer, but yeah.
All right, so we're balancing a few different conversations. Number one is, you said, we all agreed that if you're at the top, you're working hard. So I wanted to ask you, what does a cushy schedule mean? But I also wanted to ask Josh, going back to your, like, can beggars be choosers in this industry? Like, do we have to take whatever's thrown at us, or can we find, or can we choose what aspect of the industry we want to work in? Do we have that luxury?
What's cushy first? You answer that question and I'll answer the other one.
Well, so I've been on shows where you get literally like 2 days, to hand over your editor's cut. You're obviously like editing dailies as they come in, but then like two days to really like polish and add your music and everything. And on Emily, we would have like a week, which was nice. It just produced it like it only gets better the more time you have.
Mm-hmm. And this
Yeah.
is still your editing dailies, and you've got to cut,
Yeah.
and then you get this like extra is it 5 days extra that you get, or 3 days extra, depending on.
Yeah, like an extra 3 days, like depending on, the block, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And does it only have to get so far before, I mean, or does it have to really be, this could be locked if there are no comments, that tight?
I know there are different schools of thoughts on this, but I was always trained to like make it polished, make it watchable, make it so that, someone who's not used to watching rough cuts can watch it without getting hitched up on like a sound bump or something. So it's in pretty like good shape. Temp VFX, and fully scored, and yeah, cleaned up audio and any color correction adjustments that need to be made. That's
And do you do all of that yourself, or are you working with some assistants that can do some of the VFX and this color? And
yeah, I've worked with some amazing assistants who do like a great job helping out and that stuff. But they're not just assisting me there, and they might be busy on other things. So I've like become self-sufficient, and I do a lot of it on my own. But they're like more often than not, I'm able to like pass off tasks, which is really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to be good at. And
Yeah.
it's a kind of a reality TV mentality. The people I know who cut nonfiction, it's like it goes from, it can't be a bumpy ride when the first other eyes than them are seeing it, and it's them. There's just really no other option. But it's good to be self-sufficient. You also have control over it too. So it has to pass your sort of like your tests of quality.
Yeah.
And if another group's working on it, you may have to go back in and then fix something you don't like anyway. So I don't know. If you want something done right, do it yourself.
That's sometimes the case.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now. Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
Well, what was your other question, Rafi? I forgot.
Yeah, so the first was the cushy schedule, and then the second was what's if we're talking about work very hard and then cushy, the follow-up is what's normal for the industry, and can beggars be choosers, basically?
Oh, right. I mean, look, I was a freelancer until I couldn't do it anymore, and I wouldn't have turned down anything at certain times, right? Like you dream of a place where you can be selective about your work, and I had a run of feature films that I was cutting, and it was fantastic. I was like getting feature film after feature film, and they weren't big budget things. They were festival films and first time directors, but it was that format. And then there were legal, industrial, EPK, like there's stuff, January to March, I cut just about anything. And I think that maybe, I haven't done it in a long time, so I don't know if that's still sort of like the, the conventional wisdom out there. but we certainly tell our 6 week students, just cut everything you can get your hands on. And if you can't get your hands on anything, go out and shoot something or do a trailer mashup. Like there's no shortage of things that you can visualize or edit and work with. We've referred to that guy, the editor who started their career by re-editing The Shining as like a feel-good movie trailer. And it's its own little set piece, right? That becomes something that you can show in a portfolio. And that one particularly got a lot of people looking at it. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know. You're in a different place in your career now, Veronica. So, I'm not sure you're like, cutting industrial how-to videos on your off time. But, I guess the question would be, at what point were you saying, like, I think I've got this. I think I, can say I'm going to be working in this format, comfortably without having to worry too much?
I feel like, I don't know if it's happened because it was getting to that point around like 4 or 5 years ago, and then COVID happened, and then the strikes happened. Right. And now work is very sparse and hard to come by. There are things that I will still not say yes to. I think it has to be a good match, like personality wise. I think that's as just like maybe a rule of thumb, like you don't need to say yes to things where you're going to be in a position of being taken advantage of or in an abusive situation. That's not worth it. Like there are a lot of good people and a lot of kind and talented people out there, and I wouldn't waste time on anything but that.
So I'm curious. One of our conversations of the day is you're primarily working in television versus film. So I guess there are 3 buckets. There's TV, there's film, and now there's this whole online YouTube universe social media universe that we live in. When you were saying, sadly, abusive / where you wouldn't want to go, are one of those buckets taking more advantage of editors than others? What are you staying away from?
I don't think so. I mean, I luckily I've been really fortunate in working with good people. For the most part, there was one job whose title I won't name, where I think it was a combination of like I was assisting and just done assisting and didn't want to do it and was miserable. And then there was also like very strong, difficult personalities. And that was like the one job that I left early because I had another editing opportunity elsewhere, and it just wasn't worth the stress and heartbreak to stay. But I don't know that I could speak to like if that's more prevalent in one genre or form than another. And I have done a few features, and I would love to do more. Just throwing that out there. I think ideally it's nice to be able to balance the TV and the kind of like schedule and rigor of that with film, which can be a little bit more creative. I think in TV oftentimes there's a kind of a set style already when you come on, unless maybe you're doing the pilot. And it's obviously like still creative, and you're getting to add yourself to it. But in my experience, it's been film that feels a little bit more like you're creating and having more of an influence on the outcome. Just to go back to the trailer thing real quick, I recently saw Silence of the Lambs as a rom-com. Have you seen this one?
No, is it good?
It's pretty good. And I worked with a director, Jonah Feingold, he did the mashup of, or it was like the Star Wars trailer as if Wes Anderson directed it, which went viral. This was years ago now, but he like got a manager off of that. So I think it's really good advice.
It's
to
weird.
Yeah,
You kind of have to try anything and everything. Do you work with an agent or manager at this point?
yeah, I do have an agent at WPA.
And that helps, I would assume, because you're getting more stuff coming your way. Or is it just like when it's low tide, it's low tide for everybody?
I mean, it's low tide, but they're amazing at getting me meetings, and even if they don't work out, it's networking and it's just face recognition, and maybe it'll work out on the next thing. So that's helped a lot expand my network, and also dealing with the negotiating stuff, money stuff you don't have to worry about.
So Jason, how, this is something that we've talked about at the school also, that just a little plug here, Manhattan Edit Workshop, it's not just doing stuff online. So we're in this phase of kids, young people, anyone, they could just go online. They can go on to YouTube. They can get a free tutorial. They can get a paid tutorial. They can take a class online. But you're not getting that networking opportunity, and you're not getting the skills that you can learn on how to get into an industry or jobs. Jason, how are we addressing that in our offerings?
Well, I mean, I do think that the class replicates as close as it can without being a high stress situation what expectations will be, whether it's detail oriented stuff, going, trying to do this, like all the problem solving that you have to do without like the actual application, giving people confidence that they can go out and, as you see here, that Veronica would motivation to go out and do all these things. I think it's another reason to get you more encouraged to do these things. But we definitely are, even since when she was in the class, we've gone a lot into job searching, preparing for the interview, preparing your resume, preparing all that stuff, so that like where to find the work, because obviously we don't all start with managers and things like that. So you have to start out and just hit the, going. So hit the, as soon as you leave the class. So that's, that's what we really try to focus on, besides just adding that whole other element. But, as far as like someone sitting with you and giving you the feedback and things like that, you're not going to get that kind of stuff by watching a YouTube video, clearly. So, working on real project, I mean, I don't even know if you remember, Veronica, what you're working on, but we do sit with you. Do you remember what you're working on?
Was it on a reel? No.
Did you work? What was it?
It must be somewhere online. Yeah,
that's enough, Tommy.
Yeah. And then there was one about a woman who it was Barbaro steel.
Oh, the camera broke the camera or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But like when
again and again, to get the details right of whether it's the sound or anything, even at the lowest of level that it could be under less stress, obviously that's what you're ending up doing that now as an editor at a higher level. But that's what to answer your question, Rafi, that's it. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I think it's, and this is part of the reason it's designed this way, is because I had an experience in film school where you were there to fail without consequence. I wasn't going to lose a job if I screwed everything up that I could possibly screw up, because the point was to learn from those mistakes. And if you can learn that in a 6-week workshop and get to a place where, I'm 65, 70% confident I'm not going to make a catastrophic error as a professional in my artistic judgment, et cetera, that's Hall of Fame numbers if you're in baseball, right? Like it would be weirder if you were like, I'm 99% sure. That's just ego. And we don't want that. We want you to have humility, see that there's more to it, more to learn, more mistakes to make. They're always going to happen. But to say, I know my way around not just how to approach nonfiction or comedy or short form, but also how to conduct myself as a professional, that's a baseline. And I think that's what people use to start and continue and flourish in their careers. So that's kind of what you're saying. It's I just when you were talking about the 6 week and your reel though, I was remember like you probably had like a mini DV tape of your reel when you left, because it was like we'd have those decks on every desk, and an external monitor, and you'd lay back your reel on tape, and then
a DVD at that point. I don't know.
it burned a DVD. Oh
I think it was DVD. Yeah.
we stepped up our game.
I don't even have like a DVD like slot anymore on my computer.
I have for $30 you can go get like a player that plugs in. I have that, but if you breathe on it wrong, it breaks. It's not they're not good. But yeah, now it's like a website, and I guess everybody sets up their own channel so they can embed their videos, and it's funny because we graduated to like our Facebook group, and even that's now not where people go, because Facebook is for old people, and so you have to come up with different ways to turn our group of students and graduates into a community. So it's interesting. You're bringing us back to some fun days.
Yeah, Discord and TikTok.
Yeah. So Veronica, what are you working on right now?
Right now I'm working on surviving until 2025.
I've seen that show.
I am up for a feature that would be out of LA, and I hope to hear back today.
I will send some good vibes out to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it would be like it's like a buddy rom-com of sorts.
You have to move out there temporarily?
Yeah, for a month or two, which I think would be fun. I enjoy LA. I started teaching recently. Last year I was teaching editing at Fierstein Graduate School of Cinema, which is something I never thought I would I didn't know that I would enjoy it as much as I ended up enjoying it, but it ended up being a lot of fun, and something that I would continue to do in the future. And I have some personal projects that they're like seedlings, but I'm keeping busy doing that, and picked up some hobbies and hoping,
What's your hobby? What's your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby, well, I started playing the banjo, which
don't say that out loud.
Don't say that to me. Do you need one? I have an extra.
What? Yeah, sure. I'm collecting them.
Are you really? I was going to list this thing, and I don't, because I need to pay for a guitar to be fixed, and I want to pay for it by selling this banjo. That was my first. It was my first like real banjo, and I since bought another. Like they're about the same quality wise, but I just like the other one better. But this one's like serious, master tone ring, Kalamazoo Gibson neck, like vintage 1920s. Like it's got some old timey cred.
Fun.
Are you any good? I stink at it.
No, I suck, but I have so much fun doing it.
Do you take lessons? I know someone who was a horrible teacher, but a great therapist.
I am good on therapists. I have a teacher. He's great. I go to him. I'm kind of like sporadically. This guy Kyle Keys.
Okay, no, this guy's he's a banjo teacher. It's just he happens to not be it's not that he's not great. He doesn't push you. So if you don't practice, you just come and play. Like I ended up playing a half an hour a week because I play during my lesson and never play outside of it.
So, he's just like babysitting. Kind of.
Yeah, but he was good. He's part of like the old timey like hootenanny village scene. So I was like, I liked hearing his stories too. We're getting way off topic. I'll email you pictures of the banjo if you're really collecting it. Please take it off my hands. No one's playing it.
On and on about the banjo.
Shouldn't have brought it up. Jason was right.
Done it.
So one of the other topics, Veronica, is lately we've been talking about AI and all the tools that editors these days are using, looking forward to, not using, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you stand in all the modern software and AI?
I haven't really delved into any editing AI. To be honest, I don't really even know what's out there. Curious. But I have used like Midjourney and ChatGPT, obviously for research and then for making pitch decks. And I think it's, I mean, the whole thing is a little unsettling. And I'm glad that our unions are, fighting for some protections against job obsolescence. But there's also, I think it also, if we use it responsibly, can be great for creativity. Focusing on, I think, like the creation process and automating parts of it, I think will be really useful. And I think like image creating softwares they're pretty impressive, but they're also not quite there yet. Like it still feels a little bit like a computer generated like video game character, I'm finding. Which is just like, if that's the vibe you're going for, then great, but probably for most people it's not.
Yeah, we were generating an image for an ad, and it basically like made the man's face like a robot and then gave it a wig after we filled it. It looked terrible.
Always extra bits too. There's always
Oh
extra.
yeah, there was one with an extra finger on the hand. It was creepy.
It's really hasn't nailed those hands down yet.
Yeah.
No.
So we're gonna wrap things up. Usually, what we ask is, give us a takeaway. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to an up and coming person that would want to get into the industry, stay in the industry, have a future in the industry? Give us your insight, please.
Oh, well, I mean, we touched on it a bit already, but creating your own content, I think is great if, I think it's great at whatever stage of your journey you're on. It gives a creative outlet, and it kind of takes away the pressure of like being like at the whims of someone else's decision. I think also, networking is so important. I think through school, through Manhattan Workshop, through film school, or through, just like getting yourself out there, going to film festivals, meeting other filmmakers, finding your people that you can create with, and really knowing, I mean, baseline is like, you have to know the software, and you really need to know story. I think a lot of like my students that I've had were proficient sometimes in the technology side, but needed to kind of buff up their storytelling skills, because the editor really needs to, know as much, if not more, about story and structure as the director, especially if you're working with a first-time director. I think it's even that much more important for you to be able to help support their vision and help guide them through it and make really smart editing decisions based on what's best for the story. And I think, like, to what you were asking earlier about being selective or not selective, I think it's really important to pursue what you want. It's always great to get a foot in the door in whatever way you can, but don't get stuck there too long if that's not where you want to end up being. So I tell my students to, go on IMDb Pro, find like the people whose careers that you're interested in and reach out to them, because I think a lot of times editors are very approachable, they're very generous, and they want to help. And you'll be surprised, like even a cold email can sometimes like get you a coffee date, and who knows what might happen down the road.
All right, Josh, Jason.
Yeah, Rafi.
Your one takeaway for today before we wrap up.
It's always great to hear success stories, and not everyone's going to go on IMDb Pro and have have it occur to them, but also have the courage to say, I need to reach out to these people. And I agree with that. I think you can waste a lot of time and effort thinking that you're entitled to something. Even if you're gifted, there's a line a mile long of people who are just as talented. You have to take it. And just because you've got a baseline of skill and ability to tell stories and understand structure, you're not the only one ever. And likely not the best ever. Like there's always someone, there's always a Jimi Hendrix out there, just people that can't believe this person exists. But getting those connections, it happens, but you got to go put yourself out there. If you think it's coming to you and that somebody owes you something, you're going to be very, very lonely at the top of your own one person pile.
Jason, takeaway and what's happening at MEWShop?
Sure. Well, takeaway, first of all, like and subscribe to the channel. We don't ever say that enough. But my takeaway is also no matter what, you had a real bad job that you said you went through, but every job can lead to another job. So I feel like that is really resonant with you, that you just kept doing things, and it seems like they're connected, but they're connected for a reason, because you do the detail-oriented work, you present yourself well, and you work hard, and you were putting the time in. So I think that's a lesson that never gets old, is just every job can lead to another job if you do it right. What's coming up? Well, we go to the YouTube channel. We're releasing a lot of our events that we've been recording and that kind of stuff. And obviously we have another 6 week coming up in November. And we're going to probably announce the artist in residence soon for that. And we have classes each week going, and Resolve, Avid, Premiere, all that kind of stuff. So check out the channel on the website.
Go to MEWShop.com and check it all out. These guys were in their second day of the 6 week class. So Veronica, I'm sure Jason, you guys remember some people who are just oh my God, this is too much. I can't take it. And I just remember every once in a while, I'd have to bring someone into my office and be like, this is as hard as it's ever going to get. It's all just keep on going. It'll work. It'll sink in. But I remember a couple, I haven't seen it here because I haven't actually opened the door of my office all day. We've been in meetings all morning, but just that, that panic stricken, oh my God, this is hard. I'm waiting for that, but we don't get it so much when it's premieres first. It's usually that Avid, the second day of Avid, where people go nuts.
Yep.
People are so intimidated by Avid. Everyone who comes over and sees my home setup, they're like, "Are you running a NASA launch pad here? What's happening?" But it's true. It gets easier.
It only gets easier. So we'll see. I don't know. So far, so good over there. But it's nice. The second day, it's a fresh group. It's always nice.
Very good.
Cool.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm Rafi Salem once again from Manhattan Edit Workshop. Thank you, Josh Apter, Jason Banky, and our special guest today, Veronica Rutledge. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Hopefully, we'll have a follow-up after you get that gig in LA, and then we could hear about what you're doing out there and all your personal projects also.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.